So some of you I might have met and some of you I might have not, but it is nice to be with you all this afternoon. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started on the July Mentor webinar. My coworker, Ben Sterling, who I'm sure you all have received plenty of emails and correspondence with, is also on the webinar today. He is here to help answer any questions that you might have. So on the right-hand side of your screen, you will see that there is an option for you to ask questions. If you do have a question, simply type in that question and Ben will give you a response. Or if there are a lot of questions that it seems like we are having across the board, I will address those at the end. But we will have the opportunity for questions and answers at the end of our webinar. But again, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. So today's webinar is going to be all about community service. As we know, this is the next deadline that students have to meet in order to remain eligible for Tennessee Promise. The deadline for community service is August 1st, so it's in about half of a month. We're getting down to the wire now. Students must submit 8 hours of community service by August 1st in order to remain eligible for Tennessee Promise. So let's go and dive on in. And again, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask us using your question bar on the right-hand side of your screen. So you all should see my screen on here, and I will walk you through a couple of different things that students see as well. So if one of your students comes to you and needs assistance, hopefully this will help you as you are leading them towards where they can go to submit hours, get opportunities, etc. So what is community service and what do we communicate with students about what would qualify for community service? Well, quite simply, community service is time contributed to a nonprofit or public service organization in a student's community that is strictly volunteer work. So it is bettering their communities, and it is something that they do not get paid for. It's a way to give back to the community and a way for the students to get involved. It's also a great way for students to become more engaged and learn more about their communities. So I often tell students, give back to where you come from, give back to what has shaped you into the young adult that you are now. So this is a great opportunity for students to give back to their communities. We do encourage students to keep it local. So if you grew up in a city, give back to that city, give back to that county, keep it in your hometown, give back to where you come from. Community service has always been a component of the tnAchieves Scholarship, and it has always been a component of the Tennessee Promise Scholarship. A little interesting information, from 2009 to December 2015, 540,000 community service hours have been logged across the state. That is amazing. That is showing that our students are giving back statewide, and they are doing that in large quantities. But from the class of 2015, 318,183 hours were volunteered in communities across the state to meet the December 1 and August 1 deadlines from the class of 2015. So those are amazing numbers. Our students are getting out in their communities, giving back, learning more, and it's also helping to shape the student, especially as they're making that crucial transition from high school senior into college freshman. It gives the students a sense of community and a sense of belonging. And students volunteer in many different sectors in their communities. A lot of the more popular sectors that students volunteer include nonprofits, hospitals, schools, community agencies such as food pantries or animal shelters, humane societies. A lot of the times students also give back by job shadowing. So they might be interested in teaching, or they might be interested in business. They can job shadow at a school. They can job shadow at a local business agency to really get the hands-on experience that they need, and also by giving back to their communities at the same time. But again, For Tennessee Promise, students have to complete and submit 8 community service hours prior to every term enrolled. So the community service requirement and deadline is a hard deadline. Students have to meet the deadlines in order to remain eligible for Tennessee Promise. So if a student does not complete 8 service hours by August 1st, then they would not be eligible for Tennessee Promise moving forward. And once eligibility is lost, it cannot be regained. So you might have students who come to you and say, oh, I'm not sure still exactly where I'm going to go to college or what my plans are going to be. We always encourage students, meet that community service deadline, complete 8 hours, and log them on our website using the community service form, which I will show you all very soon. Give back and meet this deadline so that if something happens and you are going to continue your eligibility at a Tennessee Promise eligible institution, you will have met that requirement. So it's very important that students are aware that this is a hard deadline. You have to complete 8 hours in order to remain eligible for Tennessee Promise. Even if you're not sure of what your plans are, go ahead and meet this requirement. As we are looking forward to the August 1st deadline, mentors will receive an update on your students soon with the student's eligibility status and the community service status of the students once we send that report to you. As a mentor, students may reach out to you for assistance with securing opportunities or discussing potential ideas to complete the requirement, or to simply ask, what is community service and where do I log my hours? So as you all are aware, we did communicate the community service component with the students at the mentor student meeting in March and April, and we did discuss what does count as community service and what does not count as community service for students. But just a little recap on that. If the student comes to you and says, what can I do, what can I not do? It's important that they are aware of the 3 restrictions that will not be accepted for the community service deadline. The first one is that a student cannot volunteer for pay. So it has to be strictly volunteer work that is unpaid. A student cannot volunteer for a family member, so their aunt, uncle, mother, father cannot be a direct supervisor of the student. They do have to also have a direct supervisor. And the student must volunteer for an organization, event, public service outlet, school, etc., that the student would have that direct supervisor and it directly benefits the community. So, for example, a student could not volunteer for their next door neighbor mowing the grass and count that as community service. They do need to do something that is directly benefiting the community and also where they would have a direct supervisor. And that last part is important in communicating this requirement with students because the direct supervisor's information is a part of the community service form. So when volunteering, I would encourage your students that they must get the supervisor's contact name, number, and email address in order to successfully complete the tnAchieves community service form. So once a student completes their volunteer work, the student must submit the tnAchieves form online at tnAchieves.org with the volunteer information in order for the student's hours to be logged and submitted for eligibility for confirmation. So you all should be able to see my screen, and this is the homepage of tnAchieves.org. You will see that once a student logs onto our home page, up at the top, it will go to community service. If a student simply hovers their mouse over community service, the drop-down menu will occur and you will see community service form. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this so that you can see exactly what the student sees, and I will also insert my information so you can have a glimpse of the community service form, especially if the student comes to you and they have trouble with the form. So you will see if you click community service form, it takes you to the first page and asks for the personal email address. It's important to know that students must use the email address on file with Tennessee Achieves in order for the student to successfully access the information part of the form. So more than likely, it's going to be the email address that the student used when applying for Tennessee Promise. If your student doesn't remember their email address, they can't get into the form, then I would ask them if they remember what they used to apply for Promise with, and if not, they can reach out to a Tennessee Achieves staff member, and we would be more than happy to get this information to the student and update their email address if they can no longer access that email. So put in the email address, the personal email address, and also the last four of the student's social security number. It will take them to their information, and they should see their first name, last name, personal email, and the last four of the social. Click next page, and this will bring them to the community service form. So this is exactly what the student has to complete and submit in order to log their service hours. So it's a couple of steps. Go to tnAchieves.org, click community service form, insert your name or your personal email address and last four, and it will go to the next page for the student to see their information, and then take them to the community service form. So as I mentioned earlier, it's important that the student gets the supervisor's name, phone number, and email address, because they will have to provide this, and it is a required field as listed by the red asterisk. Once, and this is important because the supervisor, once the student completes the form and submits the form, the supervisor will get an automated email address confirming that that student did volunteer. So every supervisor that is reported on our forms are notified via email that a student has listed their contact information. So this is simply the organization information, total hours worked, and total number of days worked. So if they worked 8 days, but they worked over a time period of 2 days, oh, I'm sorry, that's also something, an error. So they will see, it will bring down the first dates worked at this organization, and it will come up as a calendar format. So the student will simply find the date that they volunteered, list that, and then go down to the second date. So that is exactly how it looks for the student. Scrolling on down the community service, it does ask for the student to describe the work they completed. So what were their tasks while they were volunteering? A little bit more information. How did you hear about this organization? Tennessee Achieves, my mentor, my high school, college. These are options for them. And then, how likely are you to volunteer at this organization again? So it's just a few simple questions for students to complete, just so we have more information on where they volunteered, and then also the supervisor does see these responses as well. So once a student logs all of this information, they hit submit. This will go into our system. The student will receive a confirmation of submission, and they also will get an email from us once it has been approved and sent to the state for their eligibility. So that is just a little bit about the actual community service form that the students submit, and I think it's really great that you guys are able to see this so you can see exactly what the student sees as well. If a student does have questions about volunteering or has trouble accessing the form, again, they can reach out to any Tennessee Achieves staff member, but there is also an email address that Tennessee Achieves has set up that is just for community service questions, suggestions, and that email address is volunteer@tnAchieves.org. If they do send an email to volunteer@tnAchieves.org, then we will follow up with the student as soon as possible. A staff member will be in touch with the student to help them, whether that is trying to determine if they have an incorrect email on file, if the last four of their social might be incorrect, or to help answer any other type of question a student has regarding community service. They can email volunteer@tnAchieves.org at any time. Another great opportunity for students to earn community service hours, if they need help finding hours, you can always instruct the student to check out our website under the Community Service tab. So on the home page, if a student just simply clicks Community Service, this is the page that they will see once they do click Community Service. So there is an option for them to submit community service from this service homepage. But we also do update our website pretty frequently with opportunities in the area that local stakeholders, mentors, community members contact us in regards to opportunities for students. And mentors have been great with giving us ideas and suggestions on opportunities for students in the community. So thank you all so much for all that you guys have done and helping us to secure community service opportunities for students in your area. But you will see that there are community service opportunities broken down by region. So depending on what part of the state the student lives in, west, middle, or east, they can click on this and they can see there are going to be plenty of opportunities in the Middle Tennessee area. So another important piece of information is that many of the community colleges do offer service learning opportunities, which we have provided information on service learning or community service opportunities, the link to that for each individual college. So they can also check that out as well. But these are different opportunities. So you will see we have it broken down. So opportunities in Middle Tennessee. These are just great opportunities for them to reach out to. Girl Scouts, Tennessee National Guard, the Earth Team. And then as we scroll on down, it does go by county. So you'll see Cheatham County, Clay County, Coffee County. So just depending on what part of the state your student lives in, and even broken down by county, and some of them even by city. So you will see Manchester Arts Center in Manchester, Tennessee. So there are plenty of suggestions for students if they do need help trying to find a place to volunteer. Hopefully by now students have an idea of where they want to volunteer if they have not volunteered yet. But if they do not have any idea where to go, they can always check out our website, and we do update this frequently as we hear of opportunities. So if you as a mentor volunteer with another organization or work for a company or hear of anything in your communities that you need volunteers for, please do not hesitate to contact us with that information. You can reach out to any Tennessee Achieves staff member or email volunteer@tnachieves.org with that information, and we would be more than happy to publish this on our website and begin communication with students via social media and email about opportunities as well. But back to the community service homepage, you will see also that we do break down community service for the students. So how many community service hours must I complete? What is the deadline to complete and submit my hours? This also might be another question that your students come to you with throughout their duration of Tennessee Promise eligibility is, I've done service hours, but I did them in February. Does that count for the August 1st deadline? The answer is yes, it does. So as you see, for fall, students can complete hours beginning December 2nd, and they would have until August 1st. But it's important to note that with the class of 2016, students could have began their service hours as of November 2nd, which was the Tennessee Promise application deadline. So class of 2016 students, November 2nd through August 1st is the time frame that their hours must have been volunteered. And then you will see the next deadline occurs beginning August 2nd. So anything done from August 2nd to December 1st would count for the December 1st community service deadline, which would determine a student's spring eligibility. So you will also see there are other questions. What counts as community service, and how do I submit my hours? And as I showed you before, they submit their hours using the tnAchieves community service form on our website. And there are a couple of steps for them to get to the form, but if they do have issues, they do not remember their email address, they can always reach out to a Tennessee Achieves staff member or volunteer at tnAchieves.org, and we will help them try to get into their file. Another great opportunity that I would like to highlight, in addition to the opportunities listed by region, is that students, as I mentioned before, can job shadow in a field that they are interested in pursuing as a career. This is such a great resume booster for students. It can open up opportunities for students, open up doors, and can also solidify the student's interest in the field, or open up the student to see that the field that they were interested in might not be the best fit for them. So job shadowing would count as community service, and if you're mentoring some students and they're interested in the field that you have as a career, maybe they could job shadow you for 4 hours or 8 hours or however long, so that they can try to get a glimpse into that. Or if you know of a friend or family member that is in a sector that a student is interested in pursuing, see if maybe they could volunteer with that person. So there are a lot of great opportunities out there for students. A big community service opportunity that is coming up statewide is the Tennessee Promise State Parks Day. So we are excited for this opportunity again. Many of you probably remember that in the spring, in April, there was a Tennessee Promise Service Saturday at the state parks, and we are fortunate and grateful to the state parks for offering this to Tennessee Promise students for another time this summer. So on July the 23rd, students will have the opportunity to volunteer at their local state park, to volunteer their hours to meet this August 1st deadline. There are 56 state parks across the state, so there is a state park in most of the students' backyard within driving distance, and the state parks are offering this opportunity. If a student does not have anything lined up, then I would really encourage the student to pursue this opportunity. And I know a lot of students have already signed up for this opportunity, and they are excited. They always look forward to working in the state parks. It's a great way for them to give back to their communities and also be outside giving back, working with their friends giving back. It's also a great way for them to explore an area that they might not have gone to in a very long time, or they might not know was open to them. So there are we are very grateful to state parks for offering this to our students. If a student is interested in volunteering with the Tennessee Promise Service Saturday, they do have to register for the event. So once a student registers, they will be placed on the roster for their park. And it's important that if one of your students does decide to volunteer at a state park and they register, that they do attend this event, or if something comes up, that they contact the state parks in order to let them know that something has come up. So there is registration, and the state parks do look at numbers so that they can decide exactly what the student will be doing that day. So if a student would like to register, they simply visit the Tennessee State Parks website, and it will take them down to TN Promise Saturday. And then they can filter by region, East, Middle, West. So if a student is in East Tennessee, let's say that they are up in the northern part of Tennessee, let's say they're wanting to volunteer at Roan Mountain State Park. So they can click on here, and they will see that this opportunity starts at 9 o'clock a.m. and it goes from 9 to 1. So students can get 4 hours of service on this day. It explains to them how to register for the event, And it is important to note, too, that every park might have a different start time and a different duration of the time that they would be able to volunteer. So students might not be able to get all 8 on this day, but they can get half of them here from 9 to 1 on the 23rd. So this is another great opportunity for students to pursue if they do need service hours. We also partnered with mentors across the state this past year to host community service days in the counties that we serve, and we received a lot of positive feedback from across the board, from students, mentors, community members, and so we appreciate your commitment to ensuring that your students have the opportunities. And as always, we are looking ahead towards the future. So if you have any ideas for a community service day in your county for next semester for the December 1 deadline, or you would like to help plan an event, please do not hesitate to email us at mentors@tnAchieves.org, and we can begin working with you and your community to try to secure a community service day. So it might be a day that is opened up in your community that students would be able to volunteer at the library, at the Humane Society in your county. They might be able to volunteer at a city organization within your towns and your cities. So if you do have opportunities or you have ideas around community service, we are always open to helping to try to secure community service opportunities across the state for the students. And again, thank you to all the mentors who have helped us in finding community service opportunities for students, as well as helping to answer the questions regarding community service with your students. I know that a lot of you, your students might have reached out to you about community service, and you've directed them in a place where they can go and seek community service in the communities, and we appreciate that. But with today's webinar, I hope that this has been helpful for you if you are getting questions on the community service component of the Tennessee Promise Scholarship, as well as the questions on how do I submit my hours, which I'm sure that a lot of students will be asking you. I've completed my service hours, where do I go to submit? So that simple community service form, and it's important that the student knows that they will receive a confirmation email, so keep up with that for their records as well. So at this time, if you do have any questions, please, I know Ben has been answering questions throughout the duration of the webinar, but there are a couple of questions that have come up a little bit more. And let's see here. So how would a student, if they were denied community service? So if community service was denied, the student would receive an email from tnAchieves instructing them that they did not meet the community service deadline or the community service requirement as highlighted in the policies. So again, that would be they cannot volunteer for they cannot volunteer for pay, they cannot volunteer for a family member, and they also must volunteer for a where they have a direct supervisor. And one of the questions was explain mowing or maintenance for an elderly neighbor. We do ask that students give back to an organization or something that is directly benefiting the community. So volunteering their time with an organization, with an agency, with a school, those are great opportunities for students. So we do ask that a student does have a direct supervisor over that. And then let's see here. Okay, so explain how a student's community service would be denied if they volunteer at a church. So churches are great. They are great places for students to volunteer. One of the things that students can not do at a church would be proselytizing. So if a student were volunteering at their church and they were helping out with the children, or they were cleaning up the church, they were doing an event at the church with their church. That would be great community service that a student could use for the community service requirement with volunteering at a church. And we will keep this up. Let's see, a couple more minutes to see if we do have any more questions. Okay, it looks like most of the questions have been answered at this time. But if you do have any other additional questions, then please do not hesitate to reach out to us. That's what we're here for. We are here to help you in any way that we can. And you can email ben@tnAchieves.org, or you can email volunteer@tnAchieves.org. We'd be more than happy to help answer those questions. Or you can also email me. My email address is simply amanda@tnAchieves.org. Again, thank you so much for the time that you guys have given us this afternoon to learn more about the community service component, which is a crucial piece of the Tennessee Promise Scholarship. It's a great way for the students to really engage in their community. It's also a great way for the student to develop skills and give back. Also great for a student as they are learning more about a sense of the community once they're in college and boosting that resume, which we all know is very important, that students volunteer while they are pursuing their degrees as well. So thank you all so much again. We appreciate your time this afternoon, and if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day.